Thanks for tuning into Sin's Workshop. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, today we are gonna be doing my wrap-up. So this is my October reading wrap-up. I only read, I think, 9 books this month, but you know what? That's okay. Because I already met my goal of 100 books for the year. So, I think I'm just gonna not slow down, but not push myself as hard to read everything that I want to read, because I do. It's like an anxiety thing for me, because I look around my room and I'm like, I need to read all these books. That's why I bought them, you know. I bought them so I can read them. I just get really overwhelmed by the amount of books I have sometimes that I psych myself out. So I literally always have to ask my husband, like, I need you to pick a book for me to read. Thanks. That way I have some semblance of control, I guess. But I digress. That's neither here nor there. We are here to talk about my books that I read. So first up is Bloodguard. If you've already seen my review for it, it's not a good book. I do not recommend it. It's bad. Okay? It's just bad. You cannot convince me. My friend texts me. My friend Gina, she texts me. It's number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list. And I was even really shocked that Kirkus gave it a good review. Because you cannot convince me that the author writing the word bang, 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 bang 5 times in a sentence, just like that, bang, 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 to describe the table they're having sex on hitting the wall, you can't convince me that that's good writing. And as they're sword fighting, you cannot convince me that a sentence consisting of cling, clang, cling is good writing. You just can't. It's bad writing. Not to mention, Maeve's characterization near the end was awful. It was awful. And this is a personal pet peeve of mine, the book is described as Dungeons and Dragons meets Gladiator. No. If you've read D&D books, Dragonlance, or Dungeons and Dragons spin-offs, or played the game, this is nothing like that. Just because a book has dwarves and elves and humans does not make it Dungeons and Dragons. So that's just a personal pet peeve of mine, because it's a tag to draw people in, and that was one of the tags that drew me in, and it was very misleading. It is very much, however, like the Shannara Chronicles. More specifically, it's very similar to the TV show, which I did enjoy the TV show. It's very similar to the Shannara Chronicles TV show and Gladiator, but not D&D. You cannot convince me that it's like, considering the series is called Old Earth, missing the A-E-R-T-H, that's the series, Old Earth. You can't convince me that it's good writing, that it's like D&D, and that it's good storytelling, because it's not. It has potential, but I don't need to read the sequel. This one didn't really end on the cliffhanger, so you know what? I don't need to read the sequel. And I'm probably not going to, unless the publisher gives me another arc for it. Which they're probably not going to, and I'm not going to ask. It was a bad book. It was bad. Don't read it. Next up was The Temptation of Magic. So I was actually quite pleasantly surprised with this. I do think that the whole mated love trope is being really overplayed lately, but it was actually done well in this novel, because you have Imperials, and they are like the ultimate predator. Their body changes to become the best predator of whatever monster that they're hunting, right? So it was really interesting to see the whole fated mate love aspect play out, especially because it did serve a purpose for the story. It did serve a purpose for the plot, not just for the romance aspect, because it's his loophole to get out of the oath that he was bloodsworn to ages ago, you know. It's his loophole. So I did like that aspect of the story. And I also love the richness of the world, of the art history aspect. I quite fond of art, but I wouldn't say I know everything about art. I know very little. I'm very limited in my knowledge of art. But I do like art, and I do like having discussions about particular pieces when it suits my fancy. Again, it's not something I go out into the world for, but I had to take a class for one of my gen eds. So, turns out it actually is something that I do like. It's just not something I'm passionate about to explore. But when I was reading this book, the art pieces she was describing, I was fascinated by them and their meaning to the plot. So I ended up like Googling every single art piece she would mention, just so that I had a little bit more knowledge about it. It was really immersive for me to do that. So I really enjoyed it. Third book of the month was Lake of Tears. I've been reading the Del Toro's Quest series to my kid. Every night we read a chapter, and this is book 2. My son loves it. So if you're a parent and you're trying to get your kid into reading, I definitely recommend this series. The chapters are quick. It's an adventure. There are illustrations in it. And it does have the occasional puzzle in it as well that your characters have to solve, that you yourself need to solve. And you're just like, wow. It's really fun. It's more on the interactive side, so it gets your kid engaged. And honestly, as I'm reading it to my son, once he's asleep, I have to stop myself from continuing to read because I love the series so much, and it's really fun for me to read it as well. After that, I read Beast of Ruin by Ayana Gray. This is the second book. One, I love the covers for it. I love the UK covers specifically for this series. I think they're just so beautiful. That's just a side note. It has nothing to do with the story. I do like the story though. So, Kofi and Ekon have been separated, right? And Ekon's trying to save her with her grandmother, who, by the way, her grandmother is not even mentioned in the first book. But we see why in her mother's perspective. Binti. Now, at first, I didn't really realize, like, who is this Binti? What's her purpose to the plot? And as the story is going and developing, you're seeing why her perspective is important to the plot. You're seeing Tembe, also known as the Cobra, and her strained relationship with her daughter, and why it's strained, and why she wasn't involved in Kovi's upbringing as a Daraja. It's really interesting, and I like the Binti chapters because they break up the story in a way that's not distracting, and it gives a little bit more insight. It gives a little bit more history into Kofi's upbringing and Kofi's relationship with her mother and why it is the way it is. So it's really interesting to see. It's really fun. And also, they get new love interest, each of them. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I wasn't mad about it because I think their new love interest, even though, yes, they do circle back together, their new love interest, I think, symbolize their growth, you know? It symbolizes their development, and it also highlights how much that they do in fact care about each other, even though they're both developing these new love interests, and why they're developing these new love interests. They do circle back together by the end of the novel, somewhat, you know, but it's really interesting to see their dynamic change and grow, because they themselves have grown through the new experiences that they are going through in this journey to each other. Dagger and the Flame. So this was the young adult book club pick, and I absolutely loved it. I love Catherine Doyle, and I like how different this was from the Twin Crowns trilogy. Sarah, right? Is that her name? Yeah, so Sarah and Ransom. They are really good characters, and this book is very much enemies to lovers and also kind of Romeo and Juliet vibe. Now, I didn't really see the Romeo and Juliet vibe until my friend Gina actually pointed out. She's like, yeah, because they are part of rival guilds. You know, you have the Dagger Guild and the Cloaks Guild. So daggers are killers, assassins. Cloaks are just thieves, you know. And it's really interesting to see how they both use the shade magic differently. So Dagger drinks it, and they become one with shadows, basically. So they pretty much are ultimate killers. And for the others, they wear it in their cloaks, in their gloves, so that they can blend into the shadows without, as they say, tarnishing their souls, right? Because it still warps them, but it doesn't warp them on the inside the way shade, the way it does with the daggers, right? It's really interesting to see this new magic system brought to life. I really liked it, especially with the light fire aspect of it. Was that what? I didn't write the name of the light fire. I'm just calling it light fire. I'm pretty sure it's light fire. That aspect of the story, but I really did like how Sarah and Ramson like hated each other. And I realize I'm saying the word like a lot, so I'm sorry. I enjoyed seeing them play off of each other with their humor, with their snarkiness, with their multiple attempts to killing each other, because she is his target. He has been hired to kill her. I mean, the story begins with her running away from home because it's been on fire and her mother is dead. And there is this body over her, and you think it's Dorte, and maybe it is. There is a plot twist at the end that I didn't see coming, and I found it very, very interesting. And then there was the plot twist that I saw coming a mile away. So, balance. But it was still really, really fun. It was very fast-paced. It was very high stakes, and it was very interesting to read. And again, I like their dynamic, Sarah and Ransom. I think they play off of each other really, really well. All right. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So this was the pick for my book club. And I really enjoyed it. However, I do agree with some of the online criticisms that the title is a little misleading. No, they do not spend the whole novel fighting and killing vampires. There's only one vampire, James Harris. He's a slime ball, but he's so charismatic in the beginning. But he is a slime ball, and he comes into their life. There is even a time jump. I think the story is just very, very, in my opinion, well written. I think Grady Hendrix does an amazing job with his characterization and creating a grounded story. I mean, he creates such a thin line between fiction and realism that you could believe that this was actually happening in a small town in Georgia. You could believe it. It's believable in that aspect. And I do like the play on vampirism in this story. It's not like your typical vampirism. It's something completely almost foreign and alien, but it's so well done. And I think the core for me, the core of the story was Patricia. And her struggles at being a good wife, and her struggles at being a good mother, and her struggles at, trying to be perfect all the time, every time. But she has formed such a sisterhood with Slick and Grace, and it's just moving. It's very moving. It's very emotional, and it's relatable, especially since I'm a mom myself now. So I was relating to Patricia. I'm like, oh God, I haven't even gotten to the teenage years yet. God, I hope I'm going to be a good mom. So it's one of those where it's relatable, and because it's relatable, it's fun to read, in my opinion. And when they do get to the vampire slaying part, because it does happen, it is gruesome and it is gratifying. They butcher the man. He is a vampire. He is a vampire, so they're doing a good thing for the community. But damn, it is graphic and wonderful at the same time. It's just these housewives are killing a man, literally dissecting him because he's awful, and they've discovered well, dissecting him is the only way that's going to actually stop him. So, just like the calmness they have about it, it's really kind of scary, but also go girls. Go girls. There are lots of gratifying moments in the storytelling. I will say that. It is very much, I think Grady Hendrix did a really good job with portraying really strong mothers in the story. Not even strong female characters, just showing the resilience that goes behind being a mother and a motherhood. And I think for a man to do that quite wonderfully in such a relatable way, I thought was really well done. All right, after that I read Songlight. This was a gift from the publisher, and I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. But then I started reading it and I couldn't put it down. I did not want to put it down. It was my 30-page a day read, and I ended up reading, I had to stop myself, and I'm just like, oh my god, I have to go catch the bus, because I take the bus to work. And I'm like, oh my god, I have to catch the bus. I have to put the book down. I don't want to put the book down. It was that good, honestly. It goes between multiple characters a lot, but not in a way that's really distracting. It does it in a way that's very concise, that keeps the momentum, and it keeps the fluidity of the storytelling. And I like these characters. I think all of the characters offer something to the plot, especially the ones that are kind of villainous, like Sister Swan. She's not really a villain. She is a victim of her circumstances, and she's just trying to make the best of her situation, even though it is an awful situation. And then you have Lark, and Rye, and Piper, and Nightingale. I mean, these are all really, really good characters that bring the story to life, and it's a little bit like The Handmaid's Tale, in a way. There are aspects of it that are very similar to The Handmaid's Tale. But it was such an enriching novel, in my opinion, and it's a nice dystopian novel. So it does take place in North America, pretty much, if memory serves. It sounds like it takes place in North America. It takes place in our future, basically, in our future. And they do describe, skyscrapers that have been fallen to disrepair and the like. So I haven't read a dystopian novel in a long time. I think the last one I read was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I think that was the last real young adult dystopian novel that I read. Because I haven't read a really good dystopian in a while. So for me, it was really nice and fresh to read a good dystopian that was well done and well executed and had really good characterization. And when I was done reading this, I was just like, that's the end. And then I googled the Niche trilogy. So that makes me happy, because I need Rye to make his way back to Lark. I need it to happen. I need it to happen now. Especially after his last chapter. And I'm just like, when are we going to see Rye again? When are we going to see Rye again? I thought this was just a standalone. I did not realize it was part of a trilogy. But when I got to that, I was like, oh my god, thank god, it's part of a trilogy. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in books 2 and 3. And I hope it just plays really well. After that, Beasts of War. This is the conclusion to the Beast of Prey trilogy by Ayana Gray. I talked a little bit about Beasts of Ruin earlier, and this is the conclusion to that. Excellent. Excellent. So well done. I like the adventure aspect of the story, They're going across the country. They're going on an adventure to find the gods. And they need the gods in order to stop Fedu, the god of death, because he just wants to kill everyone so that only Darajas exist. He wants everyone to die. And Kofi and Ekon are like, well, we can't allow that. You can't kill thousands of people just to build your new world. It's awful. So they have to hunt for every single god, and every single interaction with the gods is quite different, but very interesting, and it does give some more insight into who these characters are, because the way they react with the gods and how different the gods are shows a lot of their character. And for Kofi, she has all this splendor, the magic. She has all of it inside of her. And she has to get rid of it. And she's seeing that it is kind of slowly corrupting her. Because much of it was not her splendor. It was not her splendor. She took it in the first book into her body to save Adia? I can't quite remember her name. but she took it to save her into her body. So now she has to get rid of it before the bonding, because if Fedu, the god of death, if he gets a hold of her magic, he's able to do what he wants to do, and she cannot allow that. But it's also slowly kind of killing her and warping her at the same time. So everyone is very concerned about her, and you're seeing the shift in the characterization. You're seeing how they grow again, furthermore. And you're seeing them come into themselves a lot. Through everything that they've gone through, they're really learning. They're learning what their passions are and what they want to do with their lives. So it really is such a great conclusion to the trilogy. It was fast-paced. I was hooked. This is another book that I found really, really hard to put down, to the point where I found the audiobook on Spotify, because I'd read and I'm like, wait, I need to see what's happening, but I'm at work, so it's like, okay, earbud in, or I'm on the bus and I'm like, I really want it. It's really hard to read on the bus. I used to do it all the time, but it's kind of hard when I have to pay attention to the bus stops, right? Because if I miss a bus, I'm screwed. So I would just have it, I'd be listening to it a lot. So I went back and forth between reading and listening to it. And oh my god, because it was so hard to put down, I didn't want to put it down. Excellent book. And last but not least, the Golden Enclaves. First of all, wow. So good. So good. So good. This is another book that I went back and forth between audiobooking and reading, because I did not want to put it down. It really was a fun, not fun. I just think Elle is amazing. She's just so abrasive and snarky, but she's also, she looks like she could kill you, and she will kill you. But she's also a cinnamon roll. Especially when it comes to the people she cares about and the friendships that she formed. She is very much a cinnamon roll, but if you mess with her friends, she will kill you. She will obliterate, destroy you. And I think that that's great. She very much is Galadriel. That's her name, Galadriel. But she goes by Elle. She is as beautiful and terrible as the dawn. And she does quote that in the first book, by the way. And her whole relationship with Orion. First of all, I hate Orion's mother. Let's just establish that. His mother is an awful human being, and I hate her. She's a Maleficer, right? She sucks, and I don't like her. But I think their whole dynamic is just so wonderful, fresh, and their love for each other. It's a really bittersweet kind of ending. She kind of has to just, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a bittersweet ending. They do get a happy ending. They do, but it's bittersweet how they get their happy ending. And no, it's not in death, just in case you're wondering. I will give you that spoiler. It's not in death. They don't get a happy ending in death. Well, I guess kinda. In case you're reading it, he is alive at the end. They both are. But there's a lot that happens. I will say Novik's writing, her layering for the storytelling, how everything just plays off of everything else, it is really well done. But I will say this, she does do lots of exposition. There is a lot of internal monologuing, which personally I enjoyed, because again, she is quite snarky and abrasive as a character, and she's kind of fun. Like, her attitude is a fun attitude. And considering how the story is written, she kind of has lots of realizations that she thus relates to the reader in a way through her internalization, internal narrative. There's not a whole, it's a story, but there is lots of exposition. The paragraphs can be daunting to some readers because they are like thick, chunky paragraphs. And I think a lot of times, even in my writing course, we were because I majored in creative writing at Emerson, and even our teachers taught us, like, you don't want to have a big block of text, because that's going to deter the reader. So I think because I have that in my mind, and that's just kind of like how we're taught to read, that it's not great to have big blocks of paragraphs. I understand the mentality, but here it worked. For Novik's purposes, it did work, and I enjoyed it. But I can understand why this book would seem a little intimidating. But trust me, once you're in it, you're in it. You're hooked. And just to see Elle destroy everyone who's basically an asshole is quite wonderful. Honestly, it is wonderful. I love her. And I love the magic system here. It's very much an adult, mature version of Harry Potter if Hogwarts was for college kids who are just trying to survive in this bubble universe while they're being hunted by monsters in every single shadow. So, if that doesn't sell you, I don't know what does. In any case, yeah, those were the 9 books that I read. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those were the 9 books I read this month. A really good month for me, I think. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share with all your book-loving friends. Let me know what you guys read. And on that note, here's to a wonderful November. And as always, happy reading.